My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask you for pardon of my sins and grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Well, recently a friend of mine told me the story of the first nappy he ever changed. He is the eldest of a family of about maybe 7. And when he was 12, he had a little brother who had just been born. And his father thought it was about time that my friend, then 12, started helping changing all these nappies. And he wasn't enthusiastic at all. He didn't want to change nappies. But his father insisted and took him into the room where he was changing the nappy and showed him step by step how you did it. And when they were finished, at the end of it, the father said to my friend, said to the 12-year-old boy, he said, "See, that's love." Very simple thing. See, that's love. At the end of the changing of a nappy. Well, I have never changed a nappy in my life. I don't particularly want to. But I think there are 2 ways that you can change a nappy. With love or without love. And if we do it in the second way, without love, it leaves us overburdened. It's, I imagine, not a very pleasant job. But if we do it the first way, we find that it is a light burden, one that even gives our souls rest. And I take those phrases from today's gospel, which is very short, and this is what Jesus says. "Come to me, all you who labor and are overburdened, and I will give you rest. Shoulder my yoke and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Yes, my yoke is easy and my burden light." Well, what is Jesus' yoke? You know what a yoke is. It's this thing that farmers put onto an ox or maybe a donkey to pull things like plows. Well, the yoke of Jesus is love. That is the weight that he wants us to pull or to carry. Maybe a bit like carrying the cross. And it is his yoke. And changing nappies, which is not easy in itself, but it becomes easy, I think. And of course, not just changing nappies, but all the jobs that are like that for us. If we allow it to become his yoke, if it is done for love, for example, done for the love of a little baby brother, well, then it becomes a completely different task, a very different kind of thing. Another way of looking at this is told us by a very eminent Jewish psychiatrist, now, I'm sure in heaven. His name was Viktor Frankl. And during the Second World War, he was placed with his wife in the terrible concentration camp, Auschwitz, and she didn't survive. He didn't know that, I think, until the end of the war. But afterwards, he wrote his very famous book, Man's Search for Meaning, which is very well worthwhile reading. But this is what he says, and I think it's almost like a paraphrase, in a way, of what Jesus is telling us in today's gospel. We shouldn't seek happiness directly, as happiness isn't something that comes directly, but as a consequence of meaning. We shouldn't seek the feeling of happiness, but for a reason for happiness. Man is a creature immersed in the search for meaning, rather than happiness. And it's very profound. So we go back to our famous nappies. If they've no meaning, well, then they're just dirty nappies. If they've no meaning, they're a real burden. But if they have a meaning, if the meaning, for example, is this is an expression of love for this baby, or this is a sacrifice I offer up for Jesus, well then that task is full of meaning. And the happiness comes as a consequence of finding meaning. Now, Viktor Frankl himself experienced this, and in a way he's just commenting on his own the insights that life brought to him. Obviously a very intelligent man reflecting on these things, but also the terrible things that he endured, but he managed to see great meaning in them, and therefore these were not intolerable burdens that crushed him, but in fact, some that even raised us up. So I'm going to read this kind of long passage from his book, Man's Search for Meaning. And he's in the camp. His wife is in a neighbouring camp, so he doesn't see her. And he's with a friend, another man there in the camp, and his wife also is in the neighbouring camp. And they're there early in the morning, and they're being given some job or other. So he said, we stumbled on in the darkness, over big stones and through large puddles, along the one road leading from the camp. So they're going out to work, I think, in the morning. The accompanying guards kept shouting at us and driving us with the butts of their rifles. Anyone with very sore feet supported himself on his neighbour's arm. Hardly a word was spoken. The icy wind did not encourage talk. Hiding his mouth behind his upturned collar, the man marching next to me whispered suddenly, "If our wives could see us now, I do hope they are better off in their camps and don't know what is happening to us." That brought thoughts of my own wife to mind, and as we stumbled on for miles, slipping on icy spots, supporting each other time and again, dragging one another up and onward, nothing was said. But we both knew each of us was thinking of his wife. Occasionally I looked at the sky, where the stars were fading and the pink light of the morning was beginning to spread behind a dark bank of clouds. But my mind clung to my wife's image, imagining it with an uncanny acuteness. I heard her answering me, saw her smile, her frank and encouraging look. Real or not, her look was then more luminous than the sun which was beginning to rise. A thought transfixed me. For the first time in my life, I saw the truth as it is set into song by so many poets, proclaimed as the final wisdom by so many thinkers. The truth that love is the ultimate and the highest goal to which man can aspire. Then I grasped the meaning of the greatest secret that human poetry and human thought and belief have to impart. The salvation of man is through love and in love. I understood how a man who has nothing left in this world still may know bliss, be it only for a brief moment, in the contemplation of his beloved. It's a rather long passage, but it's amazing, really. And it is the exact same lesson as we're hearing Jesus telling us, that we have to seek meaning, seek to put love into those kind of nappy jobs that we have. And when we feel overburdened and we feel, Lord, this task that I have, this job is kind of maybe even crushing me, go to Jesus. As Jesus says, come to me, all you who are overburdened. And we go to you, Lord, and we ask you, help me turn this job, this nappy job, into your yoke. Help me to do it for love. Help me to discover that this job has real meaning. And then we hear, like my friend heard his father say, see, that's love. I give you thanks, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask you for help to put them into effect. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.